Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hey there, this is Kathy, and for the rest of July, we're going to be re-releasing some of our very favorite podcast episodes about the pre-tenure experience. Before we get into today's episode, I want to let you know that we are enrolling for our Amplify Faculty Writing Accelerator program. This program is open for enrollment until the end of July, and we start in September. It's a 6-month program that runs September through February. This program is designed for early career women and non-binary professors who really want to do academia on their terms. This is for people who want to write more so that they can go up for tenure with confidence, but that don't want to do it by writing on the weekends and having their work overflow into the evenings. We're really trying to coach you into a method for your approach to your career that is sustainable and joyful and doesn't lead to burnout. So if any of that sounds good to you, I encourage you to check out our Amplify program. You can go to kathymazak.com/amplify and register to hear and see our on-demand information session about the program. It's like a program orientation with all the information about program structure, call times, tuition costs, everything you need to know in order to make a decision about whether Amplify might be right for you. If it is, then we encourage you to apply, which you can also do from that information session watch page. So we'll get your application and we will let you know the results within 24 to 48 hours. So we are just so excited to already have invited about 20 members into our Amplify September 2022 cohort. There are spaces left for you. So go to kathymazak.com/amplify. Watch the info session, then apply, and I'll be working with you this fall in the Amplify program. Enjoy this re-release episode. Oh, and one more thing real quick. We are taking a company sabbatical in August. Oh my goodness, what does that mean? That means that our whole company is going to press pause on the everyday work that we do. We're going to have a lovely little company retreat in the beginning of August where we're going to get together in person. And then our programs will keep going as usual in September. That means that our podcast is also taking a hiatus. So we are just so grateful that you are a listener. If you are new to the podcast and you want to make sure to get all the new episodes, please go ahead and subscribe. And I am just so happy and grateful for all of the podcast listeners. And we will see you again in September after we finish up our re-releases in July. Hello, listeners, and welcome to the last episode of our summer season of the podcast. Why investing in yourself is a radical act of self-care. All right, now we've talked about investing in yourself on the podcast before. We've talked about radical and what it means to act in a radical way inside of academia. And we've talked about self-care. But today I'm combining all of those things, and I'm going to really break it down for you to explain why investing in yourself is a radical act of self-care. Let's start with the word self-care. Now, I did a podcast episode a while ago that talked about why I didn't like the word self-care. And the reason that I didn't like the word self-care was really because I don't think it's accurate. I think that the more accurate term for what most people mean by self-care is self-preservation. Now, the word self-care has absolutely been kind of co-opted to mean taking bubble baths and naps and long walks in the woods. And self-care can absolutely be all of those things. But what we're really talking about much of the time, at least what I'm talking about with my clients about self-care, what we're really talking about is self-preservation. What are the actions you have to take in order to make sure that you can keep doing what you want to be doing in your life? For example, as a writer, I have to take care of my back. And that means I have to take care of my body and be strong. If I don't do that, so if I don't do at least some kind of exercise, and I really enjoy strength training and walking, if I don't do those things, then it will be a matter of about a week before I'll start to have such back and shoulder pain that I can't really do what I want to do as a writer because I can't sit at the desk. So in that sense, exercising is absolutely caring for yourself, but it's also just preserving yourself in your human body, right? So it's really self-preservation. In a similar way, making sure that you have time to write, that you set boundaries around your time so that you can preserve your writing time is an act of self-care, or as I'm going to say now, right, self-preservation. Because if you always let writing fall to the bottom of your list, you're not going to get the publications that you need in order to get that job you want or keep it or get that promotion. So really, we're not just talking about caring for yourself, right? We're talking about preserving yourself at kind of a really basic level. So I hope that explains what I mean by self-care. What I really mean is self-preservation. So why is investing in yourself a radical act of self-care? Well, let's look at the word radical now before we put it all together. Okay, so why is it radical for women, especially people who identify as women, people who have been socialized as women? Why is it especially radical for us to invest in ourselves, care about ourselves, preserve ourselves? Well, that's radical because we have been socialized into the patriarchy, which says that our experiences aren't as valuable, that we should defer to others with our time, with our energy, and that the contribution that women really make, right, is caring about other people. That's our real contribution to the world. But of course, it's not. That's not the only thing that we can do. We can do anything. So it's radical to take both time and resources and pour them into your own self-care or self-preservation. That's radical because it is anti-patriarchal to spend both money and time on yourself. So we'll back up one more, and we're really focusing today, right, on investing in yourself as a radical act of self-care. So we're really talking about spending money on you, okay? We're talking about investing, and today I'm going to focus on investing on professional development, although the arguments I just made all hold for whatever kind of investment you want to make in yourself. But today, let's talk about investing in your professional development. So I want to talk you through this idea of why it's radical to invest in your own professional development. It's an act of self-care and self-preservation. Something that I want you to understand as a listener of this podcast is that your career belongs to you. You are not the container through which you are doing your career. There are various containers through which you can bring your great gifts and contributions to the world, right? One of them is the container of tenure track professor in a North American system, right? We can understand what that container looks like. Another container might be as a postdoc. Another container might be as a full-time researcher. Another container might be as a researcher at a nonprofit, right? Another container might be working for a government research agency, a state or federal government research position. All of those things are containers. What you do by bringing your scholarship into the world is independent of the container through which you do it. You absolutely are influenced by the container, right? Like you might make different choices about how you spend your time if you're working for a nonprofit than if you're working on a tenure track line or if you're working in a federal agency, right? Because the measures of success are different and maybe what you want to get out of the position is different. But you are not equal to, like your worth is not equal to the container through which you are delivering your genius into the world. That's what I mean when I say you are not the container. But the other side or another aspect of this idea that you are not the container, which I think is a very liberating idea, right, is that you are responsible for your own growth and professional development. When we start to disconnect our contributions in the world from the container through which we're contributing them, we can start to see now how this is very empowering, right? Like we have the power to decide what counts for us. We have the power to design our careers to look a certain way, to have certain objectives and do certain things. But it also means some responsibility. Right? So a lot of times, or the general attitude is that if my university won't pay for it, then I'm not going to do it. And let me tell you that I 100% hear you and have been there and have made that decision as well. So let's dig into that idea of, well, if my university is not going to pay for it, I'm certainly not going to invest out of pocket to do it, right? So should your university pay for you to go to conferences, to participate in writing retreats, and to do professional development of all sorts? Yes, 100%, they absolutely should. Part of the reason that we feel that they should is that we're overworking, right? So the fact that you're overworking, by which I mean you're working too many hours per week. Your work overflows out of a traditional 40-hour week into maybe 60 hours, maybe more than that. Of course, because you're overworking, that absolutely means that you're underpaid, right? Like if you actually added up the hours you work and divided it by your salary, divided your salary by the number of hours you work, your rate for most, I imagine many of you who are listening would be underpaid. But because of that, you might feel anger and resentment to your institution. Of course you do. You're like giving them your precious hours of your life for very little compensation. And then you want to go to a conference and they won't even pay for it. Or you want to do a professional development program and they won't even pay for it. So sometimes our attitude is like, well, I'll show them. I just won't do anything that they won't pay for. And again, super understandable. Of course, it makes total sense. But let's go back to the idea that you are not the container. If you are not the container, that means that you're responsible for your personal development. And the upside of that is that whatever development you go through, personal, professional, you take with you into whatever container through which you're delivering your work. So that means that when you, like, let's say, for example, you want to go to your field's biggest conference because, you know, you're on the job market and you want to network there. When you go to that conference and you see a talk and you get a new research idea, that idea belongs to you. When you get your new job, you take that idea with you to the new job. It doesn't belong to your university. It doesn't belong to your container, right? So you need to think about whether the attitude of like, I can't do anything that my university can't pay for is an attitude that is really serving you. And that's where the title for this episode, Why Investing in Yourself is a Radical Act of Self-Care, that is because pouring into yourself to make yourself professionally and personally better is something that no one can take from you, right? It's the same way that the publications that you put out into the world, you put them out and you might, obviously you can acknowledge your university where you're working when you do that research, and you should. But in the end of the day, like, those publications build your reputation. They also build the universities, but you take them with you. Unlike things like your student evaluations or your service on committees, when you go to take those experiences and those developments kind of with you to other places, they don't have as much currency. But if you participate in publishing in your field, going to conferences, professional development, learning, and teachings that make you better, you take that with you. So should your university pay for them? Yeah, they should. However, if they won't, then you should really think about investing in them yourself. That idea that I'm not going to do anything for my career that my university won't pay for can backfire, right? And for ambitious scholars, sometimes what we need to do is judiciously and with lots of thought and prudence make investment decisions. And when we do that, we need to think about investing in ourselves, in those things that the container through which you're doing your work cannot take from you, the things that move with you when you go into different containers. So it can backfire. It can totally backfire to have that attitude of like, if my university won't pay for it, I won't do it. Instead, what you really need to do is show up for yourself and advocate or convince your administration to pay for these things that you want to do, whether they're conferences or programs or whatever. And if they don't, then you really need to consider funding yourself, because your professional development belongs to you. It is part of what you take with you when you leave your institution, and it will help you enjoy your career better. And in the case of a professional development program like the kind that we offer, it actually helps you work fewer hours. So if you're working fewer hours and your work is contained within a 40-hour work week, you're raising your rate of pay. Let me say that again. If you do a program like Amplify, and so you go from working all hours of the night, working on the weekends, to containing your work week into a 40-hour week, you're giving yourself a raise, right? If you are getting the same amount of pay for 40 hours a week as you were for 60 hours a week, and you're being more productive, which is what happens to a lot of our Amplify grads, they're working less, they're less stressed, and they're more productive because those two things are related, then you've given yourself a huge pay raise. So is it worth it to invest in yourself? Is it radical? It is, because it is contributing to the change you want to see in the world. It's contributing to that idea that we should, as people who identify as women or have been socialized as women now, in the past, in the future, that we are worth it. That developing ourselves to be our best selves is worth it. And frankly, it's worth it not just because when you are better, you make a better contribution to the world. It's worth it just because you feel better. It's worth it only because of that. If you are a happier scholar, I don't care if you're more productive or not. If you're just happier, it's worth it for that. So the next time you have to think about making a choice between not going to a conference, not participating in something like a professional development program, because your university won't pay, then I want you first to advocate for yourself and say to your university, you should pay for this because it's worth it to you and it's worth it to me. And next, if they still say no, I want you to consider the payoff of investing in yourself and how investing in yourself is really part of that self-care / self-preservation that you need to work on in order to make it happily through your academic career. So be radical, be prudent, be logical, be thoughtful, but be radical and invest in yourself and create for yourself that self-care, that self-preservation, so that you can live your best scholarly life. Now, before we sign off, I just want to invite you to come to my Power Pipeline training, which is happening tomorrow, if you're listening in real time. All you got to do to get an invitation is apply for our Amplify program. If you're accepted, then we will invite you, we'll send you the link right away to our Power Pipeline training, where you can get a little taste of our Amplify pre-tenure faculty writing accelerator and get some content from the actual program, which is the Power Pipeline training, and then all the information about our 6-month group coaching program, Amplify. All you need to do is apply, come to our free training, and we'll give you all the details about the program. The program is enrolling until August 25th. So you're going to want to definitely apply as soon as possible. Even if you are listening to this recording later than the invited training, go ahead and apply, because you still can, if there are spaces at the time of this recording, there are 18 spaces of the 36 that we have available left. So go ahead and apply, and you have until August 25th to hold your spot with a down payment, and our program starts on September 1st. I will love to see you tomorrow at our Power Pipeline training, so apply for Amplify today.
Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.